Welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We're so happy that you're here with us. We're those friends that you can take with you wherever you are on the path of infertility.
Hello, and welcome back to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We're so glad you're here. It's an honor to walk with you wherever you are on the path of infertility. I'm Jillian from the Springs in the Desert team, your host for today's episode. And today I am joined by Anne from Springs in the Desert. How are you doing, Anne?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Great to be with you.
Yes, you as well. Today we have a very special guest. I'm so excited to introduce her, Victoria Cerise. Victoria spends a lot of her time chatting about Catholic dating and marriage prep and just about the sacrament of marriage, which is so beautiful, something we talk a lot about at Springs in the Desert. But what we're going to talk about today is one of her many skills, but taking photos. So Victoria, it is so good to have you on with us today. Would you mind just sharing a bit about yourself with our listeners? Yeah, we'd just love to know more about you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. It's kind of surreal to be on here because I listen to your guys' podcast. So I'm like hearing your voices and putting faces to like voices and stuff. It's so cool. But hi, everyone. My name is Victoria Cerise. I am born and raised traditional Catholic. I am 27 years old. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, with my husband. I am a Catholic wedding photographer, which we'll talk a little bit more about my photography in a little bit. And I'm a wife to my husband, Stephen. We've been married for a little over 2 years at this point. We got married back in 2020, so pandemic wedding.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
So November 7th is our wedding date of 2020. And I am kind of on this podcast to talk about my photography business, but I do have a connection with all of our listeners in as far as like infertility. So like a little bit about our story with infertility. Stephen is one of 10 kids. I am one of 5 kids. So a lot of our dating and engagement was talking about, of course, marriage and how excited we were to get married, but also, of course, about our future children as well. We've always desired a big family, which I feel like is very common for a lot of Catholics. And of course, like we were met with this cross that we had no idea that we would be facing at this point and still facing 2 years later. You know, neither of us really anticipated like carrying this heavy burden. And of course, we're still walking on this path together. So it's been also really important to me to kind of share a little bit about this cross, like of course, carefully and like discern like when it is appropriate to share, when it is appropriate to just keep privacy as well. But I think it's so important. And I love the work that you guys are doing. A lot of your episodes have really helped me when things are hard. And like, there's little tidbits that I have taken from your episodes that I've literally applied to my like life, which is, I'm so grateful for. And that's also something important for me to just like, I love, well, I don't necessarily love talking about it, but I love helping other people through it, if that makes sense.
You are totally speaking our language, Victoria. And when we talk to other women like yourself, we end up saying, wow, you're our people. So you are our people. You are really, speaking to our hearts. And I know to this community. So thanks for all those kind words.
Oh, well, thank you very much for everything you guys do.
Oh gosh, it is. There's so much of what you just said that I think our community can relate to.
Yeah.
The unexpectedness often of this cross, the desire. You know, we talk a lot about how, you know, in marriage prep or when you're dating, there's just sort of this, I think, expectation. Like, of course, this is what it's going to be like. This is what everyone around us is going through. And then that is not always the reality. And because not a lot of people are talking about it, it can be really difficult to navigate that. And so we're really excited to talk with you today about when that does happen. There are so many various ways that the Lord has called us to fruitfulness. And one of those ways for you is in your photography business. And I think it's so helpful for our listeners, especially for me, to think about all these various ways that in specific gifts that the Lord has given to us. You know, I would not say I'm a photographer, so I'm really excited to hear from you. I like to take photos, but they never turn out the way that I picture in my head. And so could you just tell us a little bit about how your photography business started and just, what that like process has been like about co-creating with God in photography?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I have kind of a wonky journey towards photography. I always say that because I have always loved photography ever since I was like preteen, teenager. Like I was always having a camera in my hand. My family was always the one like, oh, Victoria should take the picture because she's the photographer of the family. But I never really thought it would be like kind of a viable career for me. I never thought that this would be sustainable, I guess. You
Yeah.
know, I feel like a lot of people say like, oh, it's a nice like side thing or it's a nice like creative outlet, which it is too, but I never thought it would be a viable career. So I also had a strong passion for like science and helping other people as well. So I actually decided to take the path of becoming a registered nurse. So while I was in college, I kind of put photography aside, but I did kind of bring it back out during an elective class. I took a black and white film photography class. It was so much fun. I got to learn how to like develop film and like actually mix all the chemicals and everything like that.
Whoa.
And that's where I learned and developed a lot of my photography skills. And I'll never forget my one professor. We would do like class critiques, like photo critiques after like each like assignment and stuff. And everyone would kind of critique each other's photos. And it was like the portrait like section of the challenge. And we were critiquing each other's photos and we got to me, and of course I'm so nervous, you know, showing my photos and everything. And my professor like turned to me and she's like, have you ever professionally done this before? Because you should seriously consider it.
Wow.
And I was like, oh wow, that's like a major compliment. But no, I haven't really done this. I mean, I've just done it with like for fun and with friends and stuff like that. But even that didn't like get me to switch gears. I still pursued
Yeah.
nursing because I would always hear people saying like, oh, that's so hard to get into. You can't make a career out of this. So I still continued pursuing nursing. I graduated nursing school, passed my NCLEX, and I worked in the emergency
Oh,
department.
wow.
Yeah, which is kind of wild. I learned so much there. I like do not regret at all pursuing nursing or anything like that. A lot of my like path towards nursing actually ended up leading to meeting my husband as well. So it was such a blessing to do that. But I eventually like I did some travel nursing and I started getting like really burnt out from nursing. And it kind of was supposed to be a break from nursing. I was going to just take a little bit of time off. And I really just kind of picked up photography again. I really realized how much I missed it. I picked up my camera and it was like a fire lit inside of me. I loved it so much. I ended up getting a new lens for my camera and just kind of running with it. I started my photography business and I've just been running ever since. And I never ended up going back to nursing. I still have my nursing license, but yeah, that's kind of how my business started. So it's kind of a weird path to it, but it's kind of beautiful looking back.
Yeah, that is a beautiful story.
Yeah.
I think it's those kinds of ways, like it's clear to me, even though it maybe wasn't clear like in those moments, that God's hand was in all of that. You know,
Right.
hindsight is always 2020. And so it's
Yep.
easy to see that, but just how you pursued a passion. And that's how discernment works so often, is taking a step, just one step at a time. And then it's okay to change your mind or to just switch gears for a while or forever. You know, it's okay to do that. So I really, and you have two skills, you know, these two really beautiful skills among many, but just that's so neat. And I'm sure both nursing and photography will be a part of your life, you know, forever, because you have that education and that background now.
Right, absolutely. And one thing I want to share is like when I graduated from nursing school, you know how everyone decorates their like graduation caps and everything.
Yeah.
And I had, Nurse Victoria on it and everything. But around the cap, I had the quote from St. Catherine of Siena, like, be who God created you to be, and you will set the world on fire.
Amen.
I love that quote so much. And it's like, obviously when I put it on there, I intended fully to, continue with nursing and pursue that like wholeheartedly. And I did for a little while, but then now I am applying that same quote to like what God is calling me to do now in my life and the stage that I am in my life within my vocation and everything too. And it's just like, it's so beautiful how it all works out.
Yeah. Victoria, as you were speaking, about this shifting gears, and I mean, I was a theater major, so I get the whole like do something that will help you make a living.
Right.
But it also occurred to me how much that nursing, that education, and the experience you had nursing informs your art. Because photography, I mean, for me, it's just like taking pictures of stuff. But
Right.
what you're engaged in is a real art, and as Jillian had said, a real creative act that you do sort of partner with God in a particular way, and we'll get into that. But I would imagine that experience with nursing probably
Mm.
also informs how you view your art. And I was also just thinking about what beauty and what art can do for us in healing us, not just
Mhm.
spiritually or emotionally, but even physically.
Right, absolutely. And like there's so many things that I've taken from nursing that like you might not think that they like can really relate, but working with people is just like, at the heart of it, helping others, seeing the beauty of life,
Mhm.
of like, humanity. Something I would do is like I would pray for some of my patients, working in the emergency department, and I've taken that and I pray for my couples that I work with now. And it's just like there's like just little things that you take from every step of your life that really it just shapes you into the person who you are
Yeah.
today. So it's absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful.
You know, I am curious, Victoria, because we're talking about this creativity and sort of partnering with
Mhm.
God, because you focus a lot on Catholic wedding
Mhm.
photography. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that because there's so many, I mean, there's so many things to capture, so many events and things. And so what is it about the wedding that
Mhm.
really captured your heart, and how does that help you, practice your faith and like give back to God? What does that look like for you?
Kind of what you mentioned, like with photography, just in general, like there's so much fruitfulness, there's so much beauty you can capture because you're capturing like God's creation and like the work of God's people. And just in general, there's so much you can do. So within photography, it doesn't specifically have to be Catholic weddings, but you can totally co create with
Mhm.
God in so many ways. For me, I did decide to delve kind of more into that specific niche of Catholic weddings. I wasn't originally planning to do that when I started my business, but I actually went to a couple of friends' weddings that were getting, some people that I knew that were getting married. And I happened to just like look at, the photographers that they had and notice that there were just so many moments that were being missed,
Hmm.
so many beautiful moments during Mass, especially like the consecration, them receiving communion for the first time as a married couple, just like those moments that I would consider as like must haves. But like, they weren't capturing them. And this is not to like shame or hate on anyone who like, is a non-Catholic photographer, but it's just, they just genuinely don't know.
Mhm.
And so I realized that there was such a need for that. And for me, it was like really important to also work with couples who really like valued the sacrament of marriage. All of the people who reach out to me, they just like share how important it is. Like that's the most important part of the day. And to have it captured beautifully, that just brings me so much joy because I get to work with couples who are like striving toward heaven. And I almost get to like kind of evangelize a little bit within my work.
Mhm.
I actually had she's one of my brides now, but when she reached out to me in her inquiry, she said that when she was converting to Catholicism, one of her friends sent her my page, one of my
Wow.
Instagram pages, and like just shared my work and see the beauty of Catholicism as she was kind of
Ah.
making that transition. And that is just like so amazing. When she shared that with me, I was just like, oh my gosh, I could just like cry. This is just so beautiful that I get to help serve people in that way, in kind of a way I didn't even necessarily think, but just showing the beauty of a Catholic marriage, the beauty of like honoring Our Lady and like the saints and all those kinds of things on the actual wedding day. It's so amazing for me.
I love that because it just shows that, like, these simple things that we think are like, yeah, the photography is part of the wedding, or,
Right.
just things in our daily life, how we just pass right by them and we don't see,
Mhm.
those opportunities that God reveals something to us, or that
Right.
we're able to make space for another person to receive something that God wants to give to them. So, gosh,
Right.
what a beautiful witness. It's really making me think, like, what a privilege it is to be a
It is.
Catholic photographer at a wedding. Like, I never thought of it
Right.
that way.
Yeah, it really is an honor for me every single time I get to photograph a wedding. And I tell all my couples, like I really approach it with reverence. It's not just like a work day for me. Like, I mean, I am working, but it is so much deeper than that. And the fact that I get to help other people and show their family, their friends, people who are like coming to the wedding that aren't Catholic, but they get to see their beautiful images, it just shows how important their Catholic faith is to
I
them.
can resonate a lot with your story about going to your friend's wedding and the photographer
Mhm.
not really, quite knowing what exactly to capture. And that was really our experience when my husband and I got married. We had thought that Catholic photographers were coming. Actually, we had hired like a business. They have many photographers who work for them, and we knew some of the photographers there who happened to be Catholic, and we had requested them, and we knew at least one of them was coming. And the day of, none of them were able to
Oh
come.
no.
And so, yeah, there's sometimes I got to heal a little bit from those
Yeah.
expectations. There are some of those moments that, as you said, no fault of their own, they just didn't realize what was happening. So thankfully, some other people snapped a photo or, we have got a video from the top of the church that we were able to, see it all. So there's those redeeming moments. But I'm wondering, if you could talk a little bit about how to choose a photographer, how to, maybe, a lot of our couples are already married, but some people who listen aren't. But how do you, even if you are married and you want to capture, moments down the road, maybe it's an anniversary or something like that, how do you choose a photographer? What are some tips that you have?
Yeah, of course. So when choosing a photographer is like so important that you really connect with them, because like you want to be comfortable with them. If you're uncomfortable during your photography session, no matter any editing that they do,
Yep.
like you're gonna look uncomfortable, and you're also gonna look back and be like, "Oh yeah, I felt so awkward during that time," And it's just like, okay, you definitely don't want that. So you really want people who you resonate with. I know for me and my clients, even though we don't really like know each other super well, we already have like a super deep connection just through our faith alone. And through our faith, it's like we have so many even more deep connections. There's so many other things that stem from our faith that we can connect on. Even like for one engagement session, I remember as we were walking, we were just talking about like pro-life stuff, and it's like the fact that I can talk to that with my clients is just like pretty awesome.
Yes.
I really love that I can like resonate and not feel like I have to like kind of hide that part of me or something like
Right.
that. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like required to have a deep connection with your photographer for every single session that you do, but it does build like a beautiful foundation and kind of a relationship that you have with each other. And when you connect with someone, you're more likely to trust them too. So like I ask my clients to do some silly different things for like prompts and stuff like that, because I love capturing like laughter and smiles and stuff like that. But I do ask them to do some silly things, but they are willing to do them because they trust me and because they're comfortable with me. And I'm only going to get those reactions from clients who actually like trust me. So that's one thing that I would say is like super, super important. And then of course, definitely like look at their portfolio, make sure you actually like their style. And by style, I mean also like, of course, their editing style, but their actual like photographs, because some photographers are really like into more of like the fine art, like studio portraits, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's not really my style. I like to capture kind of a mixture of some like romantic photos and then more like the authentic like laughter photos. So you kind of want to get a feel for like what kind of photos are they showing on their website, what are they showing on their Instagram, and like make sure you
Those
connect
are
with that.
great tips.
You know what that made me think of? When the parish does their book and they photograph everyone, and and you're sitting there and this complete stranger is like moving your chin, like just like
Yes.
up and look up but look to the side, and like all these really awkward things. So I love that you are saying that we need to be comfortable. I mean, we're trusting the photographer has a good eye, but
Right.
you also, I mean, this is a big day. Like you want it to look very real, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's something that's really important for me with my clients. Like for any session that I do, especially weddings and everything too, like I want you to look back and like see yourself in those photos. Like not see like just like, oh, some made up version of you, but like you yourself, like your actual like genuine smile and genuine laughter on your wedding day. That's really important.
Those are really great tips because I am not a photographer. I don't always know the terms or like what, but I can tell with just a few friends or looking at your page that there are different views or sort of, the lenses with which, no pun intended, but lenses with which people, are taking these photos through. And so to find a way to choose the style, that fits whatever it is that, that event that you're going for. That's a really good tip that I'm definitely going to put in my back pocket for the next time that we get a photographer. Victoria, I'm also curious, like I said, some of our community members are already married. And a lot of typical photography sessions are about, announcing a pregnancy or announcing a birth or, family portraits or, graduations, things that some of those people in our community may not experience yet or may not ever experience. But that doesn't mean that the events that are happening in their life aren't worthy of capturing. They're very worthy of capturing. And so I'm wondering if you could give us some suggestions of some other moments throughout our lives that our audience could decide, I'm gonna get a photographer for that. This is important enough that we're gonna hire someone to capture this event.
Yeah, of course. So I'm biased, of course, as a photographer, but I truly, genuinely believe you don't need like a quote unquote special reason to have a photography session. Capturing the beauty of like your and your husband's marriage is like reason enough to have like beautiful photos of you.
Amen.
Yeah, this is your permission that you don't necessarily need a reason. Of course, there are lots of reasons, and there is beauty in having photos of all the major life events, like your engagement, your wedding, and if you maternity, like those kinds of things. But there's also a lot of other things to celebrate and rejoice in. So I will give a few examples. One of the things you already mentioned was like anniversaries. So anniversary sessions are so beautiful. I love capturing them and I love sharing all about them because there's something really special about a couple who's been through so much together. And when I say been through so much together, I don't even necessarily mean an anniversary session for your 25th anniversary. That is beautiful too, of course. But also for the couple who's been married for a year or 2 years or 7 years. Me and my husband have been married for 2 years, and I feel like we've been through so much together, even in just our first year, let alone years to come. So of course, I primarily do photograph engagement sessions and weddings with my business. And like those are very happy and joyful. But there, I can actually see the difference in photographing couples who've been married for a year or longer. Like there's something so deep about a couple that's been married for a while. And especially, this is for all couples, but especially for couples who have been through like infertility or just suffering in general, because like you really develop such a deep and beautiful bond. Like there's so much unconditional love that's developed through going through this cross. And like it's just anything that is so heavy, you just develop such a deep bond. So that is just so beautiful. I love anniversary sessions. And then there are so many other things to celebrate. Just kind of, I guess, look at it from like a kind of a different lens, I guess. For instance, I actually had a couple, they're actually not married, but they were apart for 7 months because he was in military training. He went to boot camp and then training, and he came back from boot camp and we did a session of the two of them together. And there's just like, that is so beautiful. Like anytime there's going to be a decent amount of distance between you and your spouse, whether that be for military reasons or for work-related reasons, I highly recommend getting a session either before or even or after as well when they come back. But I think having it before is sometimes really nice because it's like photos you can have tangible when you're feeling like really sad that they're gone. If you can do both, I highly recommend that. But if you can only do one, I almost recommend doing it before, just because it's just like, it's so nice to have those when things are really hard, especially if you have to be apart. And then another example is celebrating a new job or new career. My husband recently graduated Fire Academy. So that is like such a beautiful, like, and joyous time for us. And we're going to have a session of the two of us with him in like his fire gear and everything. And I'm going to get all dressed up and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah.
That sounds so neat.
Yeah, it's going to be like a great way to like remember this time by. Like, of course, you celebrate it just in general, but I can have these tangible memories of this is when he graduated and is starting this beautiful journey for a new, like a totally new career path. And then also, if you're going on vacation, especially if you're going to, international or something like that, finding a photographer and like celebrating your vacation together, even if you aren't going far, but like going to a fun new spot, that can be a really fun way to, kind of celebrate and take advantage of having nice pictures. And then the last thing I wanted to share, and this is kind of a bit more fertility related, but if you are called toward adoption, I really think it is beautiful to have like nice professional photos of you and your spouse to like, submit to your agency whenever they ask for pictures of you two.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of course, there's nothing wrong with having like cell phone photos and stuff, but I think it's really beautiful, and it's a beautiful way for like mothers who are placing their child for adoption to see you two as like a couple interacting, laughing together. It also just shows how much you love each other and that love that is going to be translated to like that child as well. So I think that that's another option.
I loved all those ideas, and
Yeah,
I'm
me
gonna
too.
write those down and use those because those are such great examples that I had not even thought of. So I'm really appreciative of that. This has been such a good conversation. I cannot wait for our listeners to hear this and to share with us maybe some opportunities that they've had to get a photographer. So thank you, Victoria, for joining us. Before we sign off, can you just tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you or where to find your photography?
Yeah, of course. So my business is called Mystical Rose Photography. It's named after one of our titles of Our Lady, Mystical Rose. So really wanted to honor her in my business. You can find my business Instagram is Mystical Rose Photography. So if you type that in, you'll find that. And then I also have a personal Instagram. It's called A Look Through My Eyes. And I talk about like Catholic dating and Catholic marriage on there. They both are kind of intermingled with like the content, but my photography is more specifically my work. But
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we will make sure to link your account in the show notes of this episode. Listeners, we hope that this has been encouraging to you and given you a couple ideas about photography and how important it is to just celebrate you and your spouse and whatever it is that you're going through in your life. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, God loves you, and so do we. God bless you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this Springs in the Desert podcast episode. If you have a minute, please rate and review us so that we can reach more listeners. Check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and go to our website, springsinthedesert.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter and hear about more things that we have going on. Most importantly, remember that God loves you so much, and so do we.